Hi, everybody. Welcome to English Digest. I'm Tom.
I'm Stephanie.
And we're marching on with the month of June. And today we're going to talk about something called the dodo bird. Okay, the dodo bird, of course, no longer exists. It is extinct. But, this bird has influenced language, and people know about this bird, and they talk about the bird from time to time in conversation. So if you know a little thing about the dodo bird, hey, you can bring up what you know in a conversation, and they'll be really impressed.
I haven't used dodo bird or dodo for a long time because it was something we used as kids to call somebody a name. Oh, you dodo. Oh, you're such a dodo. Or dodo bird. You're such a dodo bird. You could use dodo or just dodo bird. But it was something we studied in elementary school. I remember they were trying to teach us about what going extinct means, what extinction is. And so they would always use the dodo bird as an example that, it just wasn't smart enough. It couldn't fly. So, now it's no longer on Earth because the stronger, more able animals took over. So we're going to talk about the tragic tale of the flightless dodo bird. But as we always do, guys, we're going to read through our lesson first.
Once upon a time on the small island of Mauritius in the Indian Ocean, there lived a peculiar creature known as the dodo. There are various theories to explain the name of this flightless bird, which was first encountered by European sailors in the 16th century. One popular belief is that dodo derived from the Portuguese dudu or doido, meaning foolish or stupid. It was likely inspired by the bird's clumsy and fearless nature. The dodo's appearance was as unusual as its name. Characterized by a large body, short stubby wings, and a distinctive hooked beak, the dodo certainly stood out. These birds stood about 1 meter tall and weighed around 20 kilograms. Due to the lack of natural predators in Mauritius, the dodo evolved to have small flightless wings. Its inability to fly was compensated by strong legs, which allowed them to waddle around the island's forests. Unfortunately, these descriptions of the dodo largely come from historical records pieced together after its extinction. Within a century of its discovery, the dodo had disappeared as a result of several factors. The arrival of humans and some aggressive species, such as rats and pigs, initiated the dodo's tragic end. These new settlers competed for food and preyed on the dodo's eggs. The impact of humans was even more devastating. The trusting nature of the dodo made it vulnerable to sailors hunting for food. Combined with habitat destruction, these elements hastened its extinction. The dodo became one of the earliest known instances of human-induced species loss. The phrase "as dead as a dodo" born from this extinction symbolizes something permanently gone. Though now often used to describe old-fashioned ideas or trends, the phrase remains a powerful caution. The dodo's story, while tragic, teaches valuable conservation lessons, urging the protection of all current species. Okay, everybody, let's get to it. Let's discuss the contents of our lesson for today. We're talking about the tragic tale of the flightless dodo bird. Okay, so again, we're talking about extinct animals, and of course, there are quite a few examples of animals that have gone extinct. Of course, the dinosaurs are the most obvious example, but we've got some more recent examples. There's the moa in New Zealand that went extinct fairly recently. There's the North Atlantic auk, which was like a penguin-like bird that went extinct about, 100, 200 years ago or so.
Oh, that's sad.
And now we're going to be talking about the dodo bird, which used to live on an island in the Indian Ocean.
That's right. So the title is The Tragic Tale or Story of the Flightless Dodo Bird. If something's tragic, it's usually something that's very sad, something that happens that causes people to be really upset, sad, usually, but not always. It would include death of some sort, or maybe just really a lot of suffering that someone goes through. You could also use it in a funny way to kind of exaggerate a bad experience. You could say, for those of you out there that date, you could be set up on a blind date and come back and report that, that day was tragic, which means it was really bad. But we do use it to talk about sad things. And like I said, usually it includes death, destruction, or a lot of suffering.
Indeed. So this is the tragic tale of the dodo bird, which is flightless, which means it doesn't fly. Of course, so we have lots of examples of birds that don't fly. Are chickens flightless? I'm not quite sure. It seems like they don't fly, but maybe in certain situations they can get off the ground a couple of inches. So I'm not sure we would call chickens flightless, but the dodo bird
Ostrich.
Ostriches, right? They just run. They don't really fly, even though they're considered birds. And so this is a flightless bird called the dodo bird, and it's got a tragic tale. It's kind of a sad tale, so let's take a look at this tale, this story. Once upon a time on the small island of Mauritius in the Indian Ocean, there lived a peculiar creature known as the dodo. So again, we're going to the Indian Ocean, and this is the country of Mauritius. It's east of Madagascar, I believe, quite a few 100 miles away from Madagascar, so it's out there in the middle of the ocean. And once upon a time, a creature lived there called the dodo, and it's a peculiar creature, which means it's unique, it's interesting, it's not really ordinary, it's very special, it's kind of strange in a certain way.
Yeah, wacky.
Well, you could say, oh, he's got really peculiar habits. He picks his fingernails or picks his nose in the middle of class. That's a really peculiar habit. It's very unusual. It's very strange. And I guess you could consider it unique.
Yeah, it's kind of a polite way to say something's just weird. Oh my gosh, that's so weird. But if you hear peculiar, I always think, oh, that's a kind of a nicer, more formal way to say that something's really strange. So yeah, peculiar is exactly weird, something that you don't usually see. There are various theories. A theory is just an idea to describe something or the reason why something's happening. In science, we have theories, and then we do our investigative work, and we prove the theory, whether it's true or not. But there are various theories, ideas why people think that this dodo is no longer existing. And they explain the name of this flightless bird. So where did it get this name dodo? So, which we're told here in the same sentence, it was first encountered by European sailors back in the 16th century. That's the 1500s. So we're going to find out why we actually call this particular weird bird, I'm going to say peculiar bird, dodo, the dodo bird.
Yeah, it's been gone a long time, so we don't really know where it got its name. One popular belief is that dodo derived from the Portuguese dudu or doido, meaning foolish or stupid. I only studied a little Portuguese before, and so I know that the pronunciation is a little strange. I'm not quite sure if I said that exactly right, but Portuguese, of course, is the language of Portugal. And, of course, there are two countries in the world, two large countries that speak Portuguese. I think there's some smaller ones in other parts of the world, but the two main ones are Portugal and Brazil. And so here they spoke Portuguese. The sailors were sailing past. They saw that bird and they thought, what a dumb bird. It's really stupid. Of course, they were using Portuguese to describe it. And again, that word means foolish or stupid.
Kind of sad. So sometimes we get names from the first, pioneers or people who set out to a new area. We get the names from these folks who see something and decide it's a certain way. Well, they thought that bird was just dumb. So they gave the word for foolish or stupid to that bird, and it kind of stuck. So that's why we call it the dodo bird. It's from Portuguese. Now, it was likely inspired. Where did they get this feeling that was stupid or foolish? Well, it was inspired by the bird's clumsy and fearless nature. If you're clumsy, you're not very graceful. Maybe you trip over your feet. You hit into things. Some people are naturally graceful, and then there are other people who are clumsy. They're just not very coordinated. Their body kind of doesn't move the way a dancer's would. So this bird was clumsy, but it was also fearless. It wasn't afraid of anything. But if you're a small animal and you're fearless, there's a good chance a bigger animal is going to eat you. So they were probably pretty dumb because they would go up against a predator, an animal that was hunting, and get hurt or killed or eaten that way.
Right. I think I remember an old cartoon where the characters were Boris and Natasha, and he was always referring to his fearless leader. He had a leader who commanded him, and he was fearless. He didn't, or he wasn't scared of anything. I suppose that's how they describe the Kim family in North Korea there. They're fearless leaders, and we should respect them. Moving on now to the next paragraph here, it says, the dodo's appearance was as unusual as its name. So yes, its appearance was also peculiar or strange or weird. They were equally strange, the name and the appearance, what it looked like. They were both kind of strange. Characterized by a large body, short stubby wings, and a distinctive hooked beak, the dodo certainly stood out. Okay, so again, this is what it looked like, I think based on descriptions. I don't think they had photography back in those days. But it had a large body, so it was fairly big. At least the middle part was fairly large. If you don't count the legs and the wings and the head, the body was pretty large. It had short, stubby wings. If something's stubby, it's kind of short and it has a flat end to it. It's kind of like a stub, which is like your ticket stub, for example. If you go to a concert, they'll take part of the ticket away and then you get to keep the other part. That's the ticket stub. The small part of something. So the wings were not very long and straight, or at least not very long and pointed. They were short and sort of square-shaped, I guess you could say.
And stubby sometimes, if we use it for people and describing something like a finger, he has stubby fingers, they're usually short and fat, kind of round. So, yeah, they weren't very long. So obviously he couldn't get any air to take off, from the ground, because you need longer wingspans, I think, sometimes, especially if you weigh more than other birds. I always kind of equated him with like a duck, the size of a duck. But we don't have any real pictures. We have some drawings. So he had the large body, short, stubby wings. They just couldn't get that large body off the ground. And he also had a distinctive hooked beak. If something's hooked, it kind of curves downward, and then it's like the shape of a U, I would say, a hooked beak. So we use hook to talk about being addicted to things, but this is an adjective that just describes the shape of something. So the dodo certainly stood out. He looked kind of strange.
Right, and of course, if you really want to see a depiction of the dodo bird, you can look at an old Warner Brothers cartoon in which Porky Pig meets the last of the dodos. Are you really the last of the dodos? Yes, I'm really last of the dodos. So check out that cartoon if you want to see at least their interpretation of what the dodo looks
Porky
like.
the Pig, who produces that? It's not Disney.
Warner Brothers, the same company
Brothers.
that produces Bugs Bunny and Daffy Duck.
Yeah.
And Foghorn Leghorn and those people.
I think it's Porky Pig, not Porky the Pig. Is it?
Yeah, Porky Pig. Yeah,
Porky
exactly.
Pig.
No, the pig, just Porky Pig. Okay. In any case, I think we'd be rather watching cartoons than listening to a lesson about the dodo bird. But, well, let's keep talking about the dodo bird. Again, this is a description. It's got a large body, stubby wings, and a distinctive hooked beak. And it stood out. You could tell it apart from other birds. These birds stood about 1 meter tall and weighed about 20 kilograms. And that's the weight of the bird. And we'll continue talking about how the bird was described as our lesson continues. But right now we're going to take a break and listen to our Chinese teacher.
Hello everyone, 我是派老师。今天讲解的是6月10号 Unit 5 The Tragic Tale of the Flightless Dodo Bird。好，这个单元是文艺选填的练习题，内容是介绍一种鸟类的灭绝。好，不知道大家有没有听过所谓渡渡鸟 Dodo Bird？ 现在在地球上已经看不到，不过过去曾经存在。它们生活的地方是印度洋的 Mauritius 这个小岛。那这篇文章带我们去探索为什么这些鸟后来绝迹了。我们在主题解说前，老师要提醒大家，答题时要记得先看有哪些选项可以选，大致把这些选项的词性都标出来。虽然有些字不止一种词性，但我们根据句子结构可以判断这一题空格应该要填什么词性的单字，再根据文意找出正确选项，这样会比较有效率哦。好，那我们一起来解题吧。请同学看到第一段 文章开头提到，从前在印度洋的 Mauritius 这座小岛上，住着一种被称为 dodo bird 的奇特生物。接着就是第一题题干，这种鸟类无法飞行，关于它们名字的由来有好几种说法。这种鸟在16世纪首次被欧洲水手空格。好，空格前有个 be 动词过去式， be 动词之后有 80% 的机会会搭配过去分词来做被动语态。那在这里的话，我们考量前后文，再加上 H encountered 不期而遇，这样子的文意是相当通顺的，就表示这种鸟在西元16世纪首次有欧洲水手发现。那第一题我们正确答案就可以选 H。 接着请看第二题，有一种普遍的观点， dodo 这一个词呢，空格葡萄牙语的 dodo 或者 dodo 不好意思，我不会葡萄牙文，不晓得发音正不正确，如果有误请见谅。意思是愚蠢或笨拙。 that 所引导的名词子句里面呢，主词 dodo 后面没有主要动词，我们考量前后文加上 be derived from， 表示 dodo 这个词源自于葡萄牙语，所以第二题正确答案选 B。 紧接着看第三题，空格是and fearless nature。 好，这个 and 对等连接词前后词性要对等，所以空格应该也跟 fearless 一样是形容词，用前后文来做筛选。那我们就可以看到第三题正确答案应该是 F clumsy， 表示 dodo bird 这个名字来自于葡萄牙语，原本是指愚蠢笨拙的意思。这命名的灵感可能是因为这种鸟类笨拙又无畏的天性。
We're going to take a quick break. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Welcome back. We're talking about the flightless dodo bird and why it's no longer here on this planet Earth. It's extinct. We no longer have the dodo bird. So we're talking about its history. We're calling it a tragic tale, a very sad story. Why we no longer have the dodo bird around. Well, it's kind of peculiar. From what we've read and seen from drawings and descriptions of this bird, it kind of had a strange shape. It had a very large body, short, stubby wings that wouldn't allow him to take off from the ground and fly, and a distinctive hooked beak. We'll use this. I forgot to talk about this before the break, but sometimes guys, it's usually a guy, not a girl, but sometimes guys will have kind of big noses. And if it kind of goes down at the tip, I'm thinking of, who's the famous movie star that does, Tom Cruise. His nose has got a little bit of a hook on the end. It kind of goes down and curves. So we'll use that sometimes. So if you see it, you'll know what we're talking about. So the dodo bird stood out. You know, he looked sort of weird to these Portuguese sailors who first came across him. These birds stood about 1 meter tall. That's pretty tall. It's not too short. And they weighed around 20 kilograms. Now, due to the lack of natural predators in Mauritius, the dodo evolved to have small flightless wings. So if you evolve, you change over time. And we're learning here that at the beginning, it didn't have any natural predators or other animals that wanted to hunt, kill them, and eat them.
Exactly. So, of course, it did not need to hunt, and so it eventually stopped flying. And, of course, if it couldn't fly, it had to compensate with something else. So its inability to fly was compensated by strong legs, which allowed them to waddle around the island's forests. So to compensate means to make up for something. If you're missing something in one area, then you get more of the same thing in another area. We often hear this about blind people where they can't see, but they compensate by having really excellent hearing. They have better hearing than most of us because they compensate for the loss of sight if they're blind people. So yeah, they couldn't fly, so they had to get around a little, it needed a better way to get around because they couldn't rely on their wings. So they developed these strong legs, and if you have strong legs, then you can waddle around the forests on this island. So here we've got the word waddle, which means you kind of move forward when you walk by sort of going from side to side. We tend to think of penguins as waddling when they walk.
Ducks.
Ducks, exactly. It looks like they might fall down, but they're just moving forward. Ducks waddle, penguins waddle, and of course, the dodo bird supposedly waddled, although nobody has any film of them actually doing that.
Sometimes right before a woman is pregnant and gives birth, it's very hard for her to walk with that big baby in front of her. And so sometimes we'll say, yeah, she's waddling. It's kind of a joke. Anyway, moving on to the next paragraph. Unfortunately, these descriptions or how people are describing the dodo bird largely come from historical records pieced together after its extinction. If you piece together something, it means you don't have all the information in one place. And so you have to do some research and some digging to get more of the information you need. And then you kind of compile it together. You put it together. And they weren't able to do this until after the dodo was already gone. Now, we're talking about the word extinction, which is the noun form of extinct. If you use extinct, you can put it in front of the noun and say the extinct dodo bird. But if it comes after and you're saying the dodo bird is extinct, you must use the be verb to be extinct. So remember, you can put extinct right in front of the noun that you want to modify. So extinct dinosaur, extinct dodo. But if it comes after, you have to use the be verb.
Exactly. So we could talk about the extinction of the dinosaurs, and to go extinct means the species totally disappears. And within a century of its discovery, the dodo had disappeared as a result of several factors. So yeah, why did it disappear? Why did it go extinct? Or how do we explain the extinction of the dodo bird? The arrival of humans and some aggressive species, such as rats and pigs, initiated the dodo's tragic end. So human beings arrived on the island. I guess there were no human beings there before. So they arrived there, and they, of course, brought some animals with them. They brought along rats, probably not on purpose, but the rats were in the ship and got ashore and started to reproduce. They also brought pigs. So those are aggressive species that hunt and kill. And, of course, those things initiated or began the tragic end of the dodo.
Yeah, so these new settlers competed for food. Of course, everybody wants to eat, including animals and insects and things like rats. So they competed for food and preyed on the dodo's eggs. If you prey on something, it means you're watching something carefully to kind of attack it. And in this case, to attack and eat. So these are predators who are preying, not saying a dao gao here, guys. You're preying, you're watching another animal or maybe even a person, and you're watching to see what they're doing so you can attack and then kill and eat. So these are settlers. A settler is somebody who goes to a new area. Typically, the area doesn't have a lot of the same kind of people that they are. So these adventurers who would go to these islands out in the sea long ago, they are settlers. So they're setting up a home where you're far away from stores and civilization and things like that. There are very few places left on this planet where you can go and settle. But settlers is the name of the people who actually do the settling, setting up a home and, a way to live there for long term.
Right, so they were looking for food and they were looking for eggs. And the impact of humans was even more devastating. Devastating just means destructive. We could say Tokyo suffered devastating firebomb attacks during World War II. They were devastating. They destroyed a lot of property, killed a lot of people. And the trusting nature of the dodo made it vulnerable to sailors hunting for food. Yes, these are sailors. They were hungry. They wanted something to eat, so they hunted this bird. Combined with habitat destruction, these elements hastened or quickened its extinction. Habitat, of course, is where something lives usually. And, of course, when humans come, they tear down forests and build condominiums and things like that. And the dodo became one of the earliest known instances of human-induced species loss. So we've got other animals that went extinct not because of humans, but because of natural causes like the asteroid that supposedly hit the Earth to destroy the dinosaurs, or maybe volcanic eruptions or climate change or whatever. But this was a species loss that was due to human beings actually causing trouble for these animals.
Yeah, so induce just means to cause a physical change. So people are causing this. The phrase as dead as a dodo, that's a phrase somebody will use. Oh, our project bombed. It's now as dead as the dodo, or as dead as a dodo just means it's no longer around. It got trashed. It was bad. So this was born from this extinction, and it symbolizes or stands for, represents something that's permanently gone forever. Permanently doesn't mean for a short period of time. It means forever or for a very long time. The opposite, of course, is temporary or temporarily here. So though now often used to describe old-fashioned ideas or trends, that hairstyle is dead as a dodo. The phrase remains a powerful caution. What do we learn from this? Well, the dodo's story, while tragic or sad, teaches valuable conservation lessons, urging the protection of all current species. So if you urge something to be done or happen, you're trying very earnestly and very persistently to persuade somebody to do something. So it's a very strong pleading for something to happen. So hopefully we can take care of the animals right now that are close to being extinct. We have lots of species like that. We need to be careful.
We certainly do, and that brings us to the end of our explanation for today. Let's listen now to our Chinese teacher.
接着请看第4题，前一句提到这些鸟站立的时候呢，大概有1公尺高，重呢大概20公斤。由于摩里西斯岛上缺乏空格 ，Dodo bird 进化出短小又不会飞的翅膀。Lack of 表示缺乏，后面应该要加名词，表示缺乏什么东西。我们用上下文来做筛选。第4题答案选 D predators 掠夺者，表示由于摩里西斯岛上缺乏天敌 ，Dodo bird 进化出短小又不会飞的翅膀。紧接着是第5题 ，It's 它的所有格之后必须是名词，它们空格飞行有强壮的双腿可以弥补。让他们可以在岛上树林里面蹒跚而行。我们再用前后文做筛选，第5题选 G inability 没有能力做什么。那渡渡鸟不能飞行，不过它们有强壮的双腿可以弥补，能在树林里面穿梭。再来我们看第6题，不幸的是对渡渡鸟的这些空格大多是灭绝以后才拼凑而成的历史记录。只是形容词 these 这些之后要加上复数名词，考量前后文文意，第2题应该要选 A description 描述，表示不幸的对渡渡鸟这些描述大多是灭绝以后才拼凑出来的历史记录。在被发现后的1个世纪内，渡渡鸟就因为很多因素消失了，人类还有一些空格的物种的到来，比如老鼠和猪，开始渡渡鸟悲剧性的结局。紧接着看第7题 species 物种前面需要形容词修饰，我们从选项里用前后文筛选。第7题答案选 E aggressive 具侵略性的。接着请看第8题 and 对等连接词前后词性要对等，后面是 preyed on the dodo's eggs 掠食渡渡鸟的蛋，前面也应该是动词片语。所以要从选项当中找及物动词，而且要是过去式。我们一样用前后文文意做确认。第8题答案选 C competed for 竞争。再来请紧接着看第9题。好 combine 开头的这个句子是分词构句，表示以上水手觅食栖息地受破坏以上的这些因素，我们把它加总起来。这个句子缺乏主要动词，要放在 its extinction 之前。我们再用上下文做筛选，因此第9题答案选 I hasten 加速，表示这些因素加速渡渡鸟的灭绝。那再来我们 看到像渡渡鸟一样死了的这句话，源于这个灭绝的现象，象征着某一种事物呢永远消失。接着我们就看第10题题干，尽管现在常用来描述过时的观念或趋势，但这句话仍然是一个强而有力的空格。那我们看到不定冠词后面呢加可数名词单数，我们用上下文筛选，所以第10题答案应该要选 J caution 警告。好，以上就是我们对这篇文艺选填所做的中文讲解，谢谢大家 See you next time.
That's all the time we have for today, everybody. Please stay tuned to our program for another edition next time. From all of us here at English Digest, I'm Tom.
I'm Stephanie.
Goodbye.
Bye.